Happy Friday! Happy Friday, Friday. It's finally Friday. Okay, guys, I am so sorry last week I did not post an episode of Fire. I have been extremely busy. It's been a really, really long week. But please, type in the comments. Tell me how your weekend was. Tell me how your week was. I'm talking about last week because I didn't post anything last week, so I didn't get to ask you. But I'm asking now. How was your week? How was your weekends? And how are you today? Like, name something today that happened that was good and something that was bad. For me, I'll start. Something good that happened today. I finally finished some footage that I was editing earlier, and it finally rendered because it took me like 4 days to get it finished, and most of it was because it wouldn't freaking render properly. Like, it would render and it get to like 45% and then it would freeze for no reason, and it would piss me off. So I had to create an entire new file and then just put all that footage just directly on there, which took me like an hour and a half because it was a lot of footage. I'm not gonna tell you what it was though, not yet. But it took me a while to drag all of that there. And ooh, excuse me, I had to burp for a second, my bad. I had a silent burp because I had a big meal before I started doing this, so I'm just basically chilling. So yeah, I hope you guys have named some good and bad things that happened to your life. Not into your life. Please don't do that. That's gonna take a long ass story. But one good thing and one bad thing that happened today. And a bad thing that happened today is our smoke detector had went low battery. So if you hear like a beeping noise, that is probably the smoke detector, because it is telling us that it has low battery. We can't reach it. We have to get like a ladder, and we don't have a ladder. We're going to be fixing that tomorrow, hopefully. So if you hear a little beeping, that's just the smoke detector in the other room. But it's not as loud. Like, it's not super, super loud, but it's loud enough that you can hear it. So it does get pretty annoying, but it's whatever. But yeah. So, like I said, I am sorry, guys. I've been so swamped with Christmas shopping and doing a bunch of Christmas-related stuff, getting things ready for Hanukkah, because if you guys don't know, I am Jewish as well, so I celebrate Hanukkah, and my other half of the family also celebrates Christmas, so we kind of just celebrate both the holidays. So we kind of just been patching everything in, and this year I really made a lot of effort to, you know, try my best to make it a really good year, a really good Christmas. I had a good Thanksgiving, so I want to have a good Christmas, and I want to have a good Hanukkah, and I want to have a good New Year's, I want to have a good 2024, I want to have a good life, right? Yeah. So today's episode of Fire is actually going to be a little bit different from our last few episodes. I have told stories in the past before, but this is an actual different story. This is a story that I made up on my own. So if you guys don't know, if you haven't been watching the past few videos, I have posted a new project that I am working on that is called Mira. So my friends would already know what this is because I pitched this to them 2 years ago, and I've kind of just been developing the story over and over again, and haven't really pushed it forward since I had other things on my mind. I haven't really pushed it forward. So basically, Mira is about this magical elf who lives in a kingdom called the Enchanted Kingdom above the sky, above the clouds, and basically she has to go on a quest to retrieve all her elemental spirits and save her kingdom from destruction from the troll king named Spike and her evil sister, who freed the troll king and is vowing revenge on the family because she was given the power instead of her sister. So it's a very complicated story, and when I tell this about to people now, to new people don't really seem to know anything about it. So I really wanted to start this trend on like making original projects for me, you know. So I really want, because I think at first I pitched this like I want some like a trend of princesses for my content. So I guess Mira is technically considered a princess, so not a queen yet, even though she was given the royal power. But anyway, you guys don't understand what I'm saying now, but that's exactly what I mean. Like, I'm going to tell you guys a little story. I'm not going to tell you about what the movie is about exactly. I'm going to tell you the backstory, so the stuff that happens before the movie that leads up to where it's going to start. Okay? It is. I hope you guys will find it really interesting. I am going to be sharing some footage of it, some music as you're hearing in the background that was created by Bob the Builder, aka I always say Bob the Builder because that is his username, but he doesn't mind being called Bobby Jean. So hey, Bobby Jean, if you're watching, your soundtrack's in the thing, and I'm going to be putting some footage that I've made in the past that could or could not be final. I'm not 100% sure, but this is just to give you like a clear context of what it is. It's a very like, I want to say dystopian Disney kind of thing. So it's like it has Disney tropes in it. Involves a kingdom, a princess, danger, all that kind of stuff. But it's also like if HBO wrote it. It does have some violence. It has some drama. It doesn't have any nude scenes, anything like that. It's not that far. It does have blood, though. I haven't worked on too much of the footage. I mostly just wrote in the story. The script is over 50 pages long, so it's going to be a really long movie. Possibly longer than the Code Lyoko Reinforcements movie, and to be honest, I really hope it is, because the Reinforcements movie was pretty good, but it was really short, and so was the Code Lyoko United versus the I keep saying that, reboot. The Code Lyoko United versus Reboot the Guardian Code movie was also pretty short, mostly because it wasn't finished, but you guys get my point. The script was shorter, but this script is like over 50 pages long, so it's insane, as you all know. So I want you guys to get a drink, sit back, go to the toilet really quick. I'm gonna take a sip of the drink too. Ooh, excuse me, I did it again. Whew, okay, so I hope everybody is settled. So I'm basically going to be reading this like a book. So I'm going to be adding like, funny gestures and voices, and I really hope to add to this atmosphere. Forgive me if I do stutter. That's just what I do sometimes when I'm reading something and I'm trying to get really into it. But I'm going to do my best to not stutter as much for you guys and make sure I get this very interesting. So the music and the sound effects, everything's going to kick in as soon as the story starts, okay? And this is just my way of making a story interesting. So I hope you guys really enjoy this. This is the story of Mira. In the ancient mists above the clouds, the gods conspired to forge a magical tomb called the Book of Moons. To maintain control of the nature of elements, powerful spirits destined to safeguard the natural world. As the world evolves, it was the sprites that produced the clouds to produce rain, to produce grass, to urge the forest to grow and persevere. Eventually, created the mountains, which created the meadow, the lakes, and the beautiful landscapes. Without the Book of Moons, the elemental spirits wouldn't have the power to create all these beautiful things for the creatures that live in the distant lands. And their absence is beyond anyone's guess to what happens to the world. Along with the Book of Moons, the gods also created a powerful magic gem, and with this gem holds the power of transformation magic that would grant the user who wears it that will gain the ability to transform themselves into any element of their choosing. With the creation now complete, the gods commanded the ancient races of the lands that if darkness were to ever take over the world, they must combine the power of the Book of Moons and the powerful gem to make use of the spirits to help save themselves. However, the gods did not want the power given to any mere mortal, as they know too much power will create an imbalance in all they've created. So the gods gifted the Book of Moons and the gem to a magical race called the Elves. By giving these powerful gifts, they felt assured the people of the lands would be forced to work together in a time of need. Unfortunately, the thirst for power corrupts even the purest heart. Greed began to fester to all who craved the power, which led to aggression, which eventually started a war. This was a bloody war, a war for power and domination that lasted for thousands of years, nearly destroying the entire world. Many elf creatures and many mortals all perished. The war had made its mark on history. Therefore, the generations of all races became so entrenched in their hatred towards each other that they forgot about the Book of Moons, and the gem only worked when they were used together. Each race held what the other did not. But this truth had faded from memory, and chaos continued after some time. Eventually, the elves reached victory over the tribal lands, appearing to wipe all other races from the face of the world. Although they had the Book of Moons and the gem, none of them really knew how to properly use it for themselves. Making matters worse, the gods were angry that the elves had claimed all the power for themselves. the gods released a powerful punishment by taking all the elemental spirits and scattering them all across the tribal lands, hidden in dangerous locations. Only the bravest of warriors would ever dare to go seek for them. Many went to retrieve the spirits, but none of them survived. It would take generations of hard work for the elves to recover from their punishment, so they create a plan to retrieve the spirits. Despite that, desperate to repay the gods for their mistake, the elves begun their long search. Unfortunately, this search had lasted for several hundred years, in a time of elves, goblins, and a mystic. And during the time of the rebuilding by the elves, they were forced the forest goblins they called trolls for hard labor to construct a gigantic, magical, enchanted kingdom which floated high above the land below, protected by a strong, powerful shield from each of the realms. This became home of the royal elves and what was left of the Book of Moons and the gem. The royals became frustrated that they lacked all the knowledge on how to even use the book. Their quest to search for the other races untold in distant lands, but unfortunately, the war had been so savage that hardly anything from that ancient time were gone. The elves reached out to the tribal lands, offering rewards to anyone who could help gain the knowledge and the secrets they so desired. Someone did step forward, claiming to hold the secrets of the elemental spirits. An old, optimistic witch who was known as the Mystic. This mystic had a great, powerful seeing eye, and with it, she was able to share visions to the elves. "Behold," she says, "I reveal for you the secret ceremony. In it, the unveiling of truths of the elemental spirits have been and always will be passed down through the ages of anyone who has the power and has them in the same way will be able to transform into an elemental spirit." The elves were so astonished. They so wanted to learn everything about this and the knowledge, but because of this, they regularly allowed the mystic to enter the kingdom as a royal aide. The elves celebrated their newfound knowledge. Now, all they had to do was find the spirits. As they continued their search, the elves struggled to find the elemental spirits. But one day, a very special and gifted new king stepped up to take the throne. And on his coronation day, he had been given the Book of Moons and wears upon him the powerful gem. During his reign, the king created a pact with the trolls that lived below, a pact that was very beneficial to both of them. Although the trolls were brutish and annoying and smelled really nasty, they also were surprisingly brilliant at making machines, since they couldn't use magic. This benefited the trolls because it allowed them to live freely in the realms and the protected lands. Some of the other tribes resented this, claiming the trolls are just too barbaric to live with. The king had managed to track down each of the four spirits: earth, air, fire, and water. The Book of Moons was nearly full, only one spirit left to track down. Each new king was trained to use the elemental spirits. Now it was our king's turn. He too learned the use of the power, and legend has it, the elemental spirits had the ability to communicate with nature itself to one who took its form. The king took quite use of the spirits. His mentor was an elderly man named Atlas. He taught the young king how to become proficient and skillful with the Book of Moons. The king visited him often and became very close friends with the elderly man. But one day, the king had met a female elf named Lena, with whom he fell in love with. Eventually, Lena became his queen and even brought her own family to live within the castle. her sister Genesius, and her 2 brothers, Gavin and Kylo. The king had left on his final quest to retrieve the final elemental spirit. While he was gone, without his knowledge, a troll named Spike was gaining power and influence over all the trolls in the lands. And because of this, it was easy for Spike to proclaim himself king of all the trolls. They wanted more for themselves and resented being looked down upon by the natives. Eventually, their jealousy led to terrorizing and stealing from the kingdom. Meanwhile, the king was still unaware of what was happening. He had just found the final spirit, ice. With the Book of Moons finally full, the king returns to the Enchanted Kingdom, only to realize what the trolls had really been up to during his absence. The king was furious, seeing how the trolls betrayed the kingdom, and using the power of the 4 elemental spirits, he completely erouted Spike and the rest of the trolls, banishing them from the lands once and for all. No lake, no forests, only fire and flame. The king went to the mystic in anger. How could she let this happen? How could her eye have not shown a Spike rising to power? And wasn't it her duty to protect the kingdom from danger? The king would have banished the mystic if it had not been for Lena, who managed to calm her husband down and reminded him that it was elfin tradition that a king must have a mystic who is knowledgeable of the elemental spirits and the transformation. The king had instead banished the mystic by forcing her to leave the palace to live inside a hut. She no longer meant anything to the king. With the trolls banished and the king back home, only for a moment, there was peace in this new era. And it was during this time that Lena gave birth to a baby girl named Thena. Little do they know, Spike is planning his next revenge on the kingdom. One night, the king was approached by the mystic, claiming she had a vision of Atlas being attacked. The king immediately prepared to go to his trainer's aid. But once he arrived, he was confused, because everything was fine. The attack that the mystic claimed to have seen just seemed non-existent. Only Atlas in his hut with his beautiful baby granddaughter. Suddenly, Spike and his trolls sprung out from hiding. Spike goes for the hit, nearly missing the king, but instead striking Atlas. Spike struck again, striking the king to the ground, damaging the Book of Moons. Despite his injured state, Atlas was still trying to protect the king as best as he could while he was holding his grandbaby. Right before he stopped moving, the king rushed to take the baby away before Spike struck in fury and killed his close friend. Angrily, clutching the baby, the king summoned a powerful shield of all 5 spirits. Using this, he struck at Spike with the ultimate magical curse, one that turned Spike into stone, but at a cost of his own life. As Spike turned into stone, the king begins to fade, and the tiny baby stretched her arms towards the king's face, smiled softly, and eventually, the king had disappeared. The baby fell to the floor, along with a heavily damaged book. The 5 spirits held the jewel hidden safely inside the baby's hands. Panicking, the troll lord snatched up the book and captured 2 elemental spirits and fled with their leader, and the rest of the elf warriors coming to see what happened. The trolls hardly cared for the baby that was lying on the floor. None of them could realize that in its tiny hands lie the powerful gem. As the elf warriors approached the scene, with nothing but a broken, destroyed hut, a dead merchant, and a tiny baby, the elves realized what had happened. So they picked up the baby and wandered into the wilderness. Thena, walking alone in the garden, news of the king's death had spread around. Thena noticed a couple elves holding a tiny baby. Lena, after hearing Thena's startled scream, rushed to the gardens, only realizing what had happened to her husband and what was left of him. 3 elemental spirits and a tiny baby. Without the Book of Moons, the elemental spirits were vulnerable. She placed them inside the powerful gem for safekeeping and chose to safeguard the gem. The mystic had been watching events from her dingy hut. "My queen! I know for whatever his reasons, the king had lost all confidence in my counsel. But do trust me on this. I have heard rumors among the goblins that it was the troll lords who murdered the king. And it was they who hold the Book of Moons." Hearing this, the queen had ordered every single elf warrior in the kingdom to capture back the Book of Moons and punish the troll lords, for they are to be banished to the Shadow Realms, a timeless land of the undead where souls are left to rot in eternal pain. Even after taking back the Book of Moons, Lena still had no idea where the troll lords had hidden the other elemental spirits. Lena then took the baby and cared for it, the rarest of all, the powerful gem, naming her Mira, and decided to claim her as the king's child. Thena, of course, knew of this new arrival was not her real sister, but who was instructed by her mother, along with the ancestors, to never reveal Mira's origins. With the mystic back in favor, the Troll King turned to stone, and the Book of Moons and the gem was back in possession of the royal family. Mira and Thena grew up together in a time of peace. The now damaged Book of Moons was given to an old wizard named Orthon to repair. Unfortunately, the book was so damaged and so severe, he transported himself inside the book to repair it from the inside. This would at least allow the one who withheld the book would be able to control the elemental spirits in a more efficient way. Over time, Mira began to outshine Thena in everything. Elf training, flying sports, popularity, even knowledge. Wherever Thena failed, Mira succeeded. Thena's jealousy over her adopted sister began to grow and fester. Thena approached her 18th birthday with anticipation. She was very aware that once she arrived at this age, she would heir the throne and be given the powerful gem and the Book of Moons, as she is the eldest sibling. Although the whereabouts of the last 2 elemental spirits were still missing and the Book of Moons still in repairs, Thena felt sure that the magical artifacts would all be hers, since Mira was not only younger, but was adopted, so she was 100% sure that the power would be all hers. One day, the mystic had approached the queen with a vision. "Your Majesty, I have something of great importance to show you." Knowing the mystic had saved the kingdom once before, Thena trusted the mystic and was presented with a horrifying vision. A vision in which Thena was queen and leading the kingdom to its demise, to darkness and ruin. Lena had always been aware of Thena's spotty history with success, and believed in her heart that Mira was destined to bestow the transformation magic. Faced with this new warning, Lena had met with her family, Kylo, Gavin, and Genetius, that on that day, on Coronation Day, Mira, not Thena, would take the throne and the elemental magic. Then came the day for the ceremony. Mira had not been at all aware of the plotting that would change her entire future. When she was chosen, it was a shock to everyone. Lena bestowed Mira not only the Book of Moons, but the powerful gem and its 3 elemental spirits at her use. Thena, overcome with distraught and anger, fled the palace and her family's attempt at consulting her. Meanwhile, Mira was exhausted by the ceremony that took place and was put in the care of the castle aides. Lena learned that Thena had ran away and summoned the mystic once again. "I see a distant land, a figure tombed in stone. There could be no doubt about it, my queen. Your daughter is heading for the statue of the dreaded Troll King. You must find her. The mystic's prophecy scared Lena. Mira's family immediately left the Enchanted Kingdom for the distant lands, for they couldn't imagine Athena doing such a terrible thing. Realizing she released Spike from his statue with a single kiss. Speak. Why have you released me? The Troll King demands. Athena responds with, I freed you because I'm told you could help me. The elemental spirits and the Book of Moons was mine by birthright. Perhaps we can maybe help each other get what we want. Spike then responds, maybe we can. And so, the deal was struck, and an era of darkness, shadows of war, spread among the lands once again. And that is the story of Mira. So what'd you guys think? I want honest opinions. That took a good 10, 15 minutes. That was pretty good. I did stutter a little bit, but if you didn't hear the stuttering, it was probably because it was probably that bad that I had to take it out. Oh my god. Okay. How are we feeling about this story? Yes. So I did take a lot of inspiration from old ancient literatures. I also did medieval related things. I got things from all kinds of stories, a lot of Disney in there, a lot of video games that I've known. I just combined so many thoughts and theories of I got inspiration from Spartacus, from A Lord of the Rings, Kameo, Elements of Power. I got so many stories and I just jammed everything in there. Obviously, it's predictable, kinda, okay, it's the adopted sister gets the throne, and the real sister is jealous, because not only is she older, but she's the real daughter, and she gets jealous, and she runs away, she frees the dreaded Troll King, and she brings up the kingdom's demise. But this backstory is really important for people to know. And I'll repost this after the movie is done. I will repost this backstory of me reading it. It'll be the story of Mira, like I called it earlier. But this is very crucial because this is what led up to the events of the movie. Because the movie is going to begin with Mira storming the Troll King's palace and freeing her family, stopping her sister, only to be thwarted again by the Troll King's plans. These two daughters didn't really know their father very much, especially Mira. She didn't know her father, and it dates all the way back with Athena's anger festering, realizing that her sister is better than her at everything, and it was everything that Athena failed in. She always felt insecure, and she never took her anger out on Mira because she always had this security that when the time came, when she was 18 years old, when she finally turned that age, that the kingdom would be given to her, and the magical gem and the Book of Moons would all be presented to her because it was hers by birthright. So, and you understand why she's angry, and you also understand why the trolls were angry, as they were brought in as forced slaves to work on this kingdom for a race that was not very appreciative of them, because they always called them smelly and brutish and rude and annoying. Maybe they were, but rightfully the Enchanted Kingdom, it does belong to the trolls, and so do the tribal lands, since the trolls built all of that. So when Spike rose to power and declared himself as king of the trolls, they wanted more for themselves. They wanted to live in the realms. They didn't want to be limited, and they hated being looked down upon by the race of elves. And this whole story is just crazy. It's insane that thousands of years had passed when the war had happened, and then all the spirits had got scattered, and it took none of the kings of any of the elf tribes were able to track down these four spirits except this one king. Why it was this one king is beyond anyone's guess, but we learned that it was mostly from his trainer Atlas, who would have became king, but that's a whole different story, worth telling another time. Atlas is is a side story, but Atlas is basically the king's trainer. Anyway, sorry, I was getting a drink, but anyway, Yeah, Atlas was the king's trainer, and the mystic. It makes you wonder, why didn't the mystics be able to foresee? But then you think maybe her crystal eye, is subjective. It doesn't show everything. When I think about her crystal eye, I kind of get that inspiration from That's So Raven with Raven's vision. Because sometimes when Raven had a vision, she had a vision of what happened, but she didn't have a vision of why it happened, like what events led up to that. And most of the time, she would be the cause of what led up to that. So that's how I feel sometimes with her crystal eye. Sometimes we see things from her vision, and it's because of what somebody's about to do right now that led up to that point. You could either stop them or, go to it. But the king didn't see it that way. The king saw it as something that was definitely going to happen. And when the king got there, it was like he got to Atlas's hut, and all he saw was Atlas and his granddaughter just sitting alone, just being whatever, And it was because of this the king caused Atlas to die, because the trolls knew where he was. He was not in the Enchanted Kingdom. So the Enchanted Kingdom is a kingdom that is floating above the lands in a cloud. And the only way to get there is through this portal that leads them back into the distant lands, or the tribal lands, I should say. I keep saying distant lands because that's the name that derives from Adventure Time. But anyway, get to this portal, and then you go down there, and that's where some of the elves are still residing down there. Some of the elves live down into the surface, and some of them live above the Enchanted Kingdom. Those who are like the royals live in the palace. So the king rushed to the tribal lands, and he rushed to his hut, to his trainer's hut, only to see that nothing was going on until the Troll King destroyed it and killed Atlas. Luckily, the king had managed to snatch the baby from being hurt. None of the trolls seemed to really care about the baby. They really wanted the Book of Moons and the gem and the elemental spirits, which they didn't really manage to get all of them. And the Book of Moons was severely damaged. So this is a very interesting, long story. And this was just the backstory. I planned so much for Mira to go on a quest. So for years and generations, it has always been the king who has to go retrieve the spirits. But, it always has to be the son, then the king, a son, and a king. But finally, the queen, Lena, had 2 daughters. One of their daughters was destined to ruin the world. The other one was destined to make it greater. There's no sons. This is the kingdom's first daughters in rule. Because all the other kings had sons. They may have had daughters too, but they've only had sons. And those sons always took the power. But now, traditions are different. Now we have 2 daughters. Because normally the kingdom usually has a son, but they had a daughter first. And had they have had another kid, it most likely would have been a boy to take that throne. It's automatic, a boy has to get it. But since the king died, and we're only left with 2 daughters, and Lena is not allowed to remarry. Well, by kingdom rules, she's not allowed to fall in love and get married again. But now that we only have 2 daughters, it is destined that with this vision that the mystic had, that it was Mira who deserved the throne, and Thena who didn't deserve anything. So it was interesting. The way I like the way that I pointed out that the mystic's crystal eye is subjective, because I think that's the word subjective. I might be wrong. I might be saying it wrong, but it could be subjective because it can go one or two ways. It can go. She shows Lena. It's so easy to mix those two up for some reason, Lena and Thena. But she shows Lena this vision of Thena betraying the kingdom and leading it to ruins, and her vision ended up being correct. But the fact that it led up to that, what led up to that was the fact that what would happen if Lena gave the throne to Mira. Had Lena given the throne to Thena, then there may not have been a war. There may not have been ruins. Supposedly, we don't know. We don't know how the Mystic's Crystal Eye truly works. At least I know how it works. You know, I like to think about how it could work. It could go one or two ways. Remember, this whole project is still in development, so things can change. But this backstory is not changing. This is how things happened. This is what is leading up to the movie. So, I don't know why I'm telling you guys this, but I really want... I do know why I'm telling you this. Scratch that I just said that. I do know why I'm telling you this, because I really want you guys to get interested in the story. I want you guys to come up with theories. I want you guys to come up with ideas, ask me questions, anything you have about this. Because Mira is the first project that I'm working on that was completely made with my own creativity and my thoughts, my own like ideas. Like everything is strictly by me. I've approached this idea for 2 years, but I've never actually executed it. I've only been writing about it and drawing it. You guys have seen some of the drawings, and you guys have seen some of the posters as well over the years. Sometimes they got deleted, sometimes they're still there. If you check on my Instagram, you might see it. My friends definitely know what this is. And Mira has had a different changes in her look. So she originally had ginger hair, and she was white. She was bright-skinned, light-skinned. She was light-skinned. And she had blue eyes. She was a lot, like, more tattooed. And she had more piercings. And she was a lot more, like, into wearing swords. Not wearing swords. She was into fighting with swords, my bad. She was into fighting with swords. And with that came a lot of changes. She kind of looked a lot like Merida from Brave, from Disney's Brave. She looked a lot like her. She had messy ginger hair, just like her. It was curly, it was big, it was messy, and she wore like this really long dress. But then now first of all, her skin's different. She's black. She's a black woman, and she has Elsa's kind of hair. She has the ponytail that's put on the side a little bit, and she's wearing a skirt. And she doesn't have many tattoos, but she does have piercings on her elf ears, and she was given wings. Her sister has had similar changes as well. Back then her sister had red hair, now she has purple hair. Just these little things that have changed over the years, but I've never actually made the designs of the trolls, of her mother, of the king, none of that. I've only made designs of Mira and her sister. But Mira and Thena have always been the names of the two sisters, Mira and Thena. And I really like the name of Mira. It reminds me so much of Code Lyoko Reinforcements' character, Mira, which is pronounced the same thing, but Mira from Reinforcements is pronounced M-I-R-A, where our Mira is M-U-R-A. So Mira would be like from Reinforcements, and Mira would be for Mira. So, yeah, it can get confusing, it gets a little complicated, but slowly and surely people will get it through their heads. Maybe I'll change the name so it gets a little less confusing. I don't know, but I do know that this story is not going to change. I like Mira and Thena. I like where this is going, and I really, really hope that you guys will get interested, asking questions, making theories, or just tuning in to when it starts. Like, I would really appreciate it, because I'm gonna work especially hard on this. I have zero idea when this is gonna come out. Most likely I'm gonna try to get it out in 2024, because this is gonna be a really long movie, and casting calls are gonna be crazy because I'm gonna be like extremely picky on who's voicing Mira, especially. And it's exciting to start a trend of princesses, because I've always wanted to do princesses, and I really have made it a goal for from now on that I want more people of color and people of different mental illnesses or just different looks and that would not feel good. I'm sorry. Oh, that was weird. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. I want plenty of different people. I want all kinds of different stories, ethnic backgrounds. I'm getting help from some of my friends who give me ideas, but for the most part, this is completely written by me, and you know, if I mess up on something, I'll take full responsibility. I am happy to take requests, ideas, knowledge, anything. I'm working so hard on this. I really do hope you guys will tune into this. I've hit my 40-minute mark. Wow, that's crazy. Like I said, let me know what you guys think about the Mira project. I really hope to hear your guys' thoughts, ideas, and opinions, and I really hope you guys like the soundtrack that we've been working on. If you don't know, Taya has been voicing for the the soundtrack. She did the vocals, and she did the song. What was it called? Peace Across the Land. That's it. She did Peace Across the Land. She sung that song. It was like a lullaby to me. But even Replicated Becca over there, I thought it was a lullaby too. Shout out to you, Replicated Becca. Shout out to Taya, and shout out to Bob. Shout out to all of you guys. Love you all. Mwah. Can't wait to see you guys again. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the story of Mira. Let me know. I would love to hear it. And if you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe, like, favorite. Like my podcast, I don't always talk about stories like this. I always usually get into the topics of mental health, story times, interviewing. Do you want to be part of the FIRE people that I interview? Hit me up on Discord. I will happily interview you anytime you'd like. I have questions always for my fans and followers. Check out my Instagram, hashtag, I almost said Diamond Studios. It's Spooner Productions Official on Instagram, and get ready for our new projects that are coming up. Alright, I love you guys. Stay safe out there, and happy fucking holidays. Hope you guys have a good holiday. I don't care, whatever you celebrate, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever the fuck. I love you all. Shout out to you. You're all beautiful. You're all amazing. And can't wait for the next episode of FIRE. Once again, I'm really sorry for last week, but I'll try not to make sure that doesn't happen again, or at least I'll let you guys know ahead of time what happened. But anyway, peace out, everybody. Stay safe. Love you all. And it's okay to be human.